UK government is in quite a precarious situation regarding a renegotiated treaty with the European Union. Benefits for migrants in the European Union, freedom of movement for workers across the European Union are some of the fundamental pillars of the European Union. And it was evidently clear from the outset that Prime Minister David Cameron was not going to get the sort of renegotiated agreement with Brussels that would prevent a full-blown civil war potentially emerging within David Cameron's Conservative Party. Because, as I said, those areas are fundamental pillars of the European Union. Now, it's clear that there's been intense discussions between David Cameron and his European Union counterparts, such as Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande, and that's a good thing. But ultimately, what David Cameron will bring back to Britain, despite the spin that he and 10 Downing Street will put on it, will not be the sort of renegotiated agreement that many within his own party will be looking for. And I think we can put a lot of this down to David Cameron's own personal leadership, because prior to the UK general election last May 2015, it has now emerged that David Cameron and his Chancellor, George Osborne, did not believe that the Conservative Party would win a majority in the general election. They expected Ed Miliband and the Labour Party to form the next government in Britain, either as a majority government or in coalition. So prior to the general election, David Cameron announced that if re-elected, he would hold a referendum on the EU. But he never believed that he would get re-elected. And so he offered that to the UK public as a way of the Conservative Party unifying itself to go into a general election, which is all very good. But, of course, if he didn't believe that he would win the general election, he didn't believe he'd have to hold an EU referendum. The problem, in some ways, is that he did win that general election, and now he has no choice. He's compelled to hold a referendum on the European Union. And, of course, he's not going to be able to get the agreement that he's seeking, and that could kickstart a civil war in the Conservative Party. Maybe not as bad as the civil war which erupted in the Conservative Party over Europe in the 1990s under the leadership of John Major, but still it could be comparable. So when I say about this demonstrates a question mark over David Cameron's leadership, he really should not have committed himself to holding an EU referendum when he knew just how divisive it could be. And secondly, that he could win that general election. Would Margaret Thatcher have done the same? Well, of course, it's all about ifs, and we will never know. But I don't think you can compare Margaret Thatcher's leadership to David Cameron's leadership. And on that basis, I suspect that Margaret Thatcher would not have committed herself to such a huge, huge promise. So will David Cameron be able to get the renegotiated agreement he's looking for? I don't believe he will, because that would potentially eradicate one of the fundamental pillars of the European Union. And Berlin is not going to accept that. Paris is not going to accept that. So David Cameron's going to have to come back to Britain. He's going to have to say to the public, to Parliament, to his own party, this is the agreement that I've got. It's the best possible agreement for the European Union, for Britain to remain in the European Union, and undoubtedly the Prime Minister will campaign on that ahead of the EU referendum, which is looking like it will be at the end of this June, possibly the 27th of June. Will it prevent a very serious split within the Conservative cabinet? I think there will be a very serious split. And how will most Conservative MPs actually vote on the matter? Well, it seems, according to some reports, that 3/4 of David Cameron's own party will campaign for Britain to leave the European Union. So these are very dangerous times for the Prime Minister, very dangerous times for his own party, the Conservative Party. And, if David Cameron had had some strategic foresight, perhaps he would not have promised such a huge referendum on a huge issue, not just for Britain, but for his own leadership and for his own party, because he should have known that there was a possibility he would win that general election last year. So all I can say is that these are very, very exciting times for political anoraks in Britain and also outside of Britain, across the rest of the across the European Union. But as I said, these are very dangerous times for David Cameron and for the Conservative Party.